Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Vivid Earth. I hope you're well and you're handling this pre-eclipse season really well. We're already feeling the energies of that. Things are feeling a little intense right now, but it's all for the greater good. Um, I'm having a few technical difficulties today, so hopefully this video is going to come out well and the sound is okay because my microphone for some reason is not connecting. So don't shoot the messenger. I am getting this computer service. I just haven't had the time because if I have to give the computer to somebody to service, that means I don't have access to it. And I just have not had the time. But I'm glad you're here because today I want to chat about NESARA GESARA because I think it's important to touch on that again. I did discuss this topic quite a lot a few years ago. Well, I mean, I've only been on YouTube for 3 years, but uh, doing those 3 years, especially the first 2 years, I spoke about Gesara Nasara quite a lot. I interviewed a lot of people on the topic, experts on the topic. And of late, I haven't really touched on it much because, I think everyone is so in waiting mode. I don't really want to keep perpetuating that waiting for things to change kind of mentality. As you know, I've been empowering you to make hay while the sun shine, take your own power back, and create your own abundance. While the world is slowly but surely shifting and changing course, like a big cruise ship that cannot happen just like this. It takes time to chart a new course and to change direction. It does not happen overnight. The whole world, all of its systems cannot shift overnight. It is a gradual process. Now, we all did think this was going to happen already last year, the year before, even the year before that. But the more we go into this process, we realize how complex it is and that it probably is impossible to make such a shift so quickly. And even if they did try, it might not have worked because it's too dramatic for the world. I think you can agree that it's been a slow process, desensitizing the world to certain topics, seeding certain narratives in the collective, because as much as, there's a very much awakened collective watching shows like this, we are just but 10, maybe 20% of the population, not even. So the majority of the human population on Earth are not aware of these subjects at all. And they are so programmed and so stuck into their 3D matrix contract, struck, the false matrix that is, that to imagine a different world is impossible. So those kind of changes need to be seeded into the narrative slowly but surely so that the collective human consciousness can start absorbing it, and slowly but surely the cogs start turning and people start imagining a different world and systems change accordingly. You cannot change these systems overnight because they will collapse and there will be a void. So you've got to build parallel to this new systems, but at the same time, seed the narrative that the old systems are no longer working. Even though they're systems of enslavement, people don't know it because Stockholm syndrome, people protect that which makes them feel comfortable and safe, even though it's a false safety that they're experiencing. But it's a familiarity, even as distorted as it may be, for them, it's familiar, it feels safe, it is resonant with their world and perhaps their values, which they think is legitimate and good values to have, but which is not, as we know, in line with the new earth and where the planet is going and where consciousness is going, because we know in that world there's an over identification with material things, things like money, wealth, position, uh, class, one's place in society, one's career, one's business acumen, and all of these things that have been the things that we relied on in the old earth to make us feel like we've achieved something. None of those things really matter in the new earth. So, it takes a while for that, those changes in the collective's consciousness to change. But we are making phenomenal progress, and we're seeing signs every day. So I just wanted to touch on the whole NESARA GESARA subject again, and just kind of touch on where things are at the moment and the positive signs that we're seeing all around us, roll out. And I thought today would be a good day to do that. We're about to kind of go into a very powerful lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse, which is going to bring a lot of changes, endings, big revelations, as they do, as eclipses do. And then we've got the 999 portal on Tuesday, which really is about endings, closing of chapters. So I think we are going to see a lot of fireworks in September. I know a lot of you are tired, and you are a lot of you may be suffering, whether that's financially or health-wise, and you feel exhausted and just like you can't go on. But guys, we have to just hold the line and really work on our mindset, train our mind to accept a different reality, and that a different reality is ours right now. Because when we do that, our reality shifts around us. So we can make those kind of changes right now instead of waiting for the full NESARA GESARA to be implemented. At the same time, it's important to keep our eye on where the world is going, how those changes are going to manifest. Even if it's not now, even if we don't know exactly when that's going to happen, it helps us bring things into perspective and keeps the hope alive that the world around us is changing, as our own beliefs and our own constructs are changing as well. So I think those things are very important. During this time, just take care of yourself, rest, ground, connect, let go of that which no longer serves you, because a lot of people cling to it, because even in the Awakened Collective, those familiar things that we think is there to keep us safe and comfortable often is no longer for our highest good. It's no longer resonant with where the new earth is going. It's no longer for it's no longer meant to be in your space. So you're meant to let go of a lot of these things that you think is still your safety net, and all the material things as well. I think what this is teaching us, the waiting is teaching us to be humble, to be able to realize that we don't need so much around us, so much material things, that really the only thing that we rely on to be happy and whole is our own consciousness. And we don't need all the cars, all the big houses. We don't need all the couches, all the TVs, all the whatnot. Actually, we need very little. And when you look at people who live very simply, even in poor communities, a lot of them are very happy because they don't have all the stuff that they need to worry about, like the people who have more money. And so there's lessons in that, and there's lessons in everything. And trust that your soul has forged your path in a way that is for your highest good, for your highest evolution and learning, so that you may rise from the ashes like the phoenix beyond those lessons, and realize your true worth, your true power, and your true potential, really. Because a lot of these things are holding us back, right? They're not there to really support us. They're actually holding us back from stepping into our own power. And so if you can just try and find the lesson in every bad situation and realize that everything is there for your highest good, you're going to change your reality quite a lot faster. Okay, so with that said, with that being prefaced, I just want to jump right into the subject and just remind you guys of a few things that we're going to be seeing, and what we're already seeing. There are signs of a lot of these things. Now, I don't think we're going to suddenly have GESARA NESARA announced and put up in lights, and it's going to be a headline on CNN and all of these things. No, it's not going to be like that. It is going to be a slow process. Remember, there's 30 plus points to this program that will slowly unfold and roll out. Again, it cannot happen all at once, but there will be certain key components of this that needs to happen first, and that needs to happen soon, and some that are already in the works and that we can actually see evidence of. So I think that's pretty exciting. So obviously, as you guys know, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act is the American version, whereas the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act is the global version. Now, a lot of people say there are two versions. There's the security and then the stabilization. So one of them are kind of a little bit of an infiltration. I think it's more, it's this the stabilization, which is really the crux of it, because it is about stabilizing a new way of life on the planet, really. So for me, that is a true version. And I know the alternative community of obviously in the Intel and in the Letter 17 movement have spoken about these things many times over the years, and then others believe it's a pipe dream and it's simply not true and it's not possible. And all of this whole program has to do with a great financial reset that has to happen. That is at the crux of it all. Now, we know about the New World Order's plan for financial reset. And the truth is, both sides wanted a reset and needed a reset, because the current financial system, because it's debt-based, it cannot continue beyond a certain point. Generally, they reset the financial system every 100 years. So they wanted a reset. But what we're doing is we're taking their reset and turning it into our own benevolent reset. And, you know, the white hats, the military movement behind the whole Letter 17 movement, the Earth Alliance, and even with Galactic help, have been working for many, many years. And the Letter 17 movement, quite honestly, since the early 60s, 1960s, that has been in place, actually put in place first by, or kind of created by President Eisenhower, and then really kind of kicked off by Kennedy when he was in his presidency. And it kind of went dormant for quite some time, but it never stopped. And it in earnest took shape in the early 2000s again. And now we're at a culmination point where the shifting the powers that be on the planet is at a very advanced stage, and one could say has already been won by the light and the benevolent alliance on the planet to make sure that Earth's inhabitants are not further enslaved. And also, this has been prophesied, so everything is there to support it. You know, the ancient Vedic cultures, Mayan cultures, you name it, have spoken of this time, of a golden age where humanity would become enlightened, where humanity would move out of the shadows and out of the darkness and out of the control that it has been for many years, where truth would rise to the top and humanity would rediscover its own ability to create, its own inner power that's laid dormant for many thousands of years, and activates its DNA and all of the 96% of the junk DNA, which is not junk at all, so that it can step truly into its power. And this is literally rippling throughout the universe. It's not only an earthly event, and everyone's watching this show. It is the biggest show in the universe, not only on Earth. And a lot of what we see playing out today, as you know, on the world stage, is a movie. To be able to desensitize the masses to the idea that things have to change, and also to destroy the false narrative that has kept the old control system and bad infrastructures and things alive on this planet for so long. So it is a gradual process, but we're at a very advanced stage, which is extremely exciting. And you know that at the heart of GESARA and NESARA is really, there's really 8 key headline reforms that we're talking about, including debt jubilee, abolition of the IRS and income tax. And by the way, that is global, not just American based. The end of the Federal Reserve and central banks worldwide. a rainbow currency backed by precious metals, including benefits for our seniors who've been suffering so much. And I shared a video on the channel, and Telegram channel this morning, which really touched me to the point I was crying, where this man was just randomly standing behind seniors in the shop at the grocery store, watched while they were counting their coins just to buy food, and then paying for them, and then just leaving. And I realized, gosh, yeah, our seniors have been through a lot, and they really counting or turning their coins just to make ends meet, just to have food to eat. Never mind healthy food. That's not even possible for most of them. They just, can, buy what they can afford. And but it really touched me, and it reminded me that there's so many seniors that need to, that need to be looked after, and we're supposed to be looking after our elders, also our veterans that have fought for our freedoms, and so all of that is going to be taken care of with increased benefits, also return to constitutional law, or as other people kind of know it as kind of a common law structure, election integrity, and the global rollout of humanitarian funds, most importantly, to rebuild a lot of these systems, to do damage repair, of a lot of things and people, and re-education, and also to release suppressed technologies through a quantum system. So, beyond all these alternative sources, there's a few other points that I'm going to touch on. From cancelling national emergencies to restoring financial privacy, with regards to, ensuring there's world peace. And you can see how this is unfolding. Trump has been extremely active since his inception in the new presidency to ensure world peace. And in fact, he spoke about it this week, where he said, well, I've stopped 7 wars. And a reporter asked him, but what, where are you now with the Ukraine and Russia? And he said, well, let's just backtrack for a minute here, because I've now in total stopped 7 wars. So yes, there's some back and forth with Ukraine and Russia. We're going to settle that. But the bigger picture is we've already stopped 7 wars, many of whom have been ongoing for decades. They're pulling troops out of Iraq, amongst many other things. And this is, extremely significant, because NESARA cannot roll out without world peace. And this is why he's on such a mission to create world peace. There's spoken about now, he wants another meeting with Kim Jong-un. Putin is met sort of behind the scenes. You had that scenario, which was maybe two weeks ago, where Melania, the First Lady, was receiving a emerald royal lineage emerald ring from Putin. And that just says all of it. That just shows and subtly seeds into the narrative that ancient royal bloodline, and she is an ancestor of the Romanovs, who were absolutely decimated by the Bolsheviks, aka Khazarian mafia, that there is an order that needs to be restored there. And so people can start looking into that matter. And whenever they do something like this, which makes headline news, there is a bigger narrative there. They want people to look into that. They want people to investigate. They want people to research, and they want people to talk about it. And of course, the alternative community, the Intel and the Anons, they just jump on the bandwagon and they push that thing out into Google. Although Google is trying its best to kind of suppress some of these topics, a lot of topics does make it out into, the worldwide news and internet. And especially on things like X, where things start trending in a way that cannot be stopped, by the media controllers, shall we call it. And so there are so many different subjects that are being seeded into the global narrative like this, that happens literally on a weekly basis. But it is a lot. It's not just 1 or 2 or 3 things. It's a lot of things that need to be seeded into the narrative before they can kind of get a foothold into the collective consciousness. So it is a very, very complex process, you can put it that way. So world peace happening as we speak, not there completely yet, but it's well on its way. Um, also with regards to restoring financial privacy, like doing away with things like CBDC, making sure that the new financial system is decentralized, and that governments will not be able to control people's finances, and banks by default government, because the banks have been playing God for way too long, um, not even allowing people to access their own money. If they want to draw out a certain amount, they have to explain why. They have to fill out reams of paperwork, give weeks of notice. They cannot even draw their money out of the bank, because we know what's happening in the background is the bank doesn't have the money. So they only have, some of them, not even 5% of the funds being held by customers. And so, which means if all the customers come in and draw their money, the bank will collapse and they won't be able to give them the money because it's reinvested, securitized, and invested elsewhere. So they simply do not have it. And that is scary. So bringing down the current banking system is going to be quite a process. And there's been a lot of thoughts on this and how it's actually going to roll out and happen. And over the years, from a total sort of crash and banking crash to something that may be looking a little bit smoother, there's been a lot of shifting methodology around how this is going to happen, whether we're going to experience a black swan or how it's going to roll out. We've learned that with ISO 20022 that this may be the way that they transition. So forcing banks to have more assets to back their deposits, at least 10%, which protects customers, and also Basel III compliance. Well, Basel III compliance is actually the asset-backed compliance, the main aspect of that, and then ISO 20022, which we know now XRP is fully approved, in the way that it's being incorporated into almost at a government level and a mainstream level into banks. And even one of China's major banks have fully adopted now XRP, Ripple XRP, as a rail system instead of SWIFT, which has been a gatekeeper for people's funds, people not being able to move funds as they wish and as quickly as they need. And of course, apart from being a gatekeeper, also earning interest on that money, because often when you send funds overseas, it can take up to 5 days. Now, if these funds are digital, why can't it happen all at once? Why? There's no logical explanation, and the stories are being spun is just no longer holding anything, and people are not falling for this anymore, and they're starting to ask questions. So SWIFT is going to be replaced for sure, and there will be a rebalancing of the whole system. To what extent the markets will crash and realign and rebalance, because that has to happen, because there's a lot of fraud on Wall Street. There's been committed. There's a lot of money laundering. Those things have to be corrected. There's a lot of shorting and all these kind of legal loopholes to make money that is not based in truth and integrity, that has to be balanced out. But that's going to happen. And with, restoring financial privacy for people with the decentralization. So being able to send my money via the blockchain as and when you wish without interference from a government or a bank, that is going to be the future. And through this all happens through the quantum financial system, which has been running in the background literally for a few years now and been tried and tested. So it is massive, as you can imagine. You can just imagine on a governmental basis and the trillions of dollars being moved, on a monthly basis. You can imagine how big this is, and that it's not something that can be done overnight. So, because of that, have some patience. Okay. Now, also, what goes hand in hand with you know, dismantling the current debt slavery system and the way that the banks operate is also the legal and court system, the way it currently works. So that'll have to change as well. And that's, can you imagine how many millions of lawyers that will have to be retrained? How many lawyers that are basically bar agents, British, the British registry system, they are loyal to the bar. They don't work for the people, they don't work for the government. They are loyal to the bar only. And the whole legal system is our courts are basically courts where, what you do in a court, you play a game in a court. There's a bench also. There is lawyers and judges dressed like actors on a stage. The whole thing is a stage play, and they're not designed to support the everyday people at all, even though they're supposed to work for us. So all of that will change. There'll be a fair system replacing, and that are much more simple, that are not going to be so complex with a million laws and orders and mandates and all these things that they slap on us. It will be based on truth. It will be based on simplicity. Do no harm to others. Do no harm to others' properties. And we will become more self-responsible as a human collective, so that we can start governing ourselves, so that we can start ruling ourselves and become more responsible for ourselves and our own property, and not need a nanny state or anything else to lord over us and tell us how we're supposed to do things. So, so some indications that these shifts, the NESARA GESARA is already underway. We can slowly see signs of central banks merging with treasuries, as is the case in the US. It just hasn't been announced yet. So the Federal Reserve has already rolled in under the Treasury. There's been no activity in the Federal Reserve buildings for years now, but that hasn't been told to the public yet. There needs to be a certain play unfolding to show people just how defunct the system is. Including, a lot of pressure being put on Jerome Powell and so not to mention when I spoke about SWIFT earlier, it was discovered how major fraud was committed in the Vatican through being able to change the SWIFT messaging system, meaning nobody knows where money was really coming from or going. These are just some of the examples, because who are controlling those systems, and how can I amend and edit and change those systems to benefit themselves? That's been going on for years, since the Rockefellers and all these families have brought in the Rothschilds brought in these central banking systems that are privately owned. They privately own all of them. So the Federal Reserve is already dismantled, not been announced yet, but you will see that in the coming weeks. I'm pretty sure that's going to become a reality on the public stage for all to see. Remember, everything that you see in the public has already happened. There's nothing that is, everything has been fully rehearsed, fully planned out, fully gamed on, through AI to look at all the probable outcomes, how the people are going to be responding to this or that. All of these things have been gamed out. So when you see them play out on the world stage, it's already done. It's just how to exactly have it unroll and unfold so that the collective can respond to it in the appropriate way and not from a programmed perspective. So it has to be, that onion needs to be unlayered and unfolded bit by bit for them to accept the new system. So it's also, a question of de-dollarization, basically doing away with current US dollar and bringing in a new asset-backed kind of treasury note. And there's a lot of kind of discussion about what that's going to look like, with a federal note or treasury note, but be it as it may, the dollar in this current form as a fiat-based currency will go away, and also being the petrodollar for artificially tied to assets and basically pushed upon the world to create the strength that the dollar currently has, that is all disappearing as well. We know that Saudi Arabia years ago said, you know what, it's been a great ride. It's been a good 50 years, thanks US, but we're not going to tie ourselves to the US dollar anymore in exchange for military protection. We are now ready to, sell our oil in other currencies and be a bit more open-minded and not artificially prop up the dollar just because you want us to, basically. So we've seen a lot of pilots of the quantum financial system roll out, and they're preparing humanitarian funds and how that's going to be released in the background. Can you imagine how much that is? Already it's been identified that there's several sovereign trusts that are going to be settling debt worldwide. There are trillions and trillions in funds that have been hidden and kept from the public, that is going to be funding debt relief, debt forgiveness everywhere. That's part of the collapse of the banking system, debt forgiveness. Now, that doesn't mean if you borrowed money from your brother-in-law, you're going to have debt forgiveness. Debts like that you have to repay. But anything coming from the bank, where the bank actually already used your birth certificate trust to fund that debt, which is really what it is. They loan you money that A, comes from your own birth certificate and your own flesh and blood. B, they securitize that loan, they sell it on the stock exchange, and they get paid 10 or sometimes even 100 times for that debt. And then they're asking you to repay it with ridiculous interest on top of it. So all of those things are going to go away. And in many cases, we've already seen debt forgiveness. Here and there, banks have taken a portion of their customers and said, you know what, sorry, the debt is wiped out. Thank you. Enjoy. It's happened. There's a lot of proof of that happening worldwide. Even in Europe, there's been certain banks that have wiped its customer debt away. So that debt jubilee is going to be incredible. And that's going to be including credit cards, mortgages, car loans, personal loans, all of that. And then the fact that with the, as I said, abolish income tax, that's a big one. And Trump, even this week, again, seeded that into the narrative that with all the billions that he's collected from tariffs and will be collecting from tariffs, it's very much a possibility that the IRS and the income tax will be abolished altogether. So you see, every time that is like, people are like, the normies are like, oh, that's an interesting point. And they start discussing it, start desensitizing them. They're like, oh, that's going to be great, isn't it? And then so by the time it happens, there isn't that knee-jerk reaction, there isn't that shock reaction. Believe it or not, for people to not be able to pay income tax anymore is actually something that they have to get used to. I don't know how that's possible, but again, Stockholm syndrome, they identify actually what's controlling them and not what's going to free them. So that has to be slowly dismantled. But yeah, he mentioned that even this week, and he was speaking about the fact that income tax only came into effect in 1913 or whatever it was, that from the 1880s to the early 1900s was America's wealthiest period because they completely relied on tariffs, and they had so much money they didn't know what to do with it. So that is, he told people that at a big, I don't know, I can't remember if that was at one of his speeches or that tech dinner. And so that is another thing, which brings me to another point, the release of 6,000 plus hidden patents and advanced technologies, many of whom were invented, or let's say reinvented, by Tesla, who was channeled this information, because this technology did exist in Tartarian times. And then when the civilization got wiped in that 1800s period with the mud floods, all of that went away and people forgot what they knew, and all of that knowledge got wiped for a reason, because humanity got too smart, caught on too much, became too independent, and the controllers didn't want that because they need the loosh for their existence. And so they wanted to wipe that slate clean and start all over again and have people just think that they don't have the power and that they rely on governments and big powerhouses to give them, for their power, for their energy, for their food, for their water. And so the release of these 6,000 patents is going to free up the entire globe, and it's going to end like energy dependency. People are not going to need to be dependent on energy, things like fossil fuels, which is not fossil based at all, because another fallacy and lie. So free energy, etheric energy, magnetic energy, hydro energy, all these cars running on water, and that's only the beginning. Never mind levitation technology and everything else. Propulsion technology. So that is, super exciting. And which brings me to my point in a way also to what happened at the White House this week, where Trump was hosting all these tech powerhouses, including many people that we know or not do not have humanity's best interests at heart, including Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates being probably the biggest one, and a few other people, big AI tech tycoons, etc. Interesting that Elon Musk wasn't there, right? But anyway, so people were saying, what is going on here? Like Bill Gates is sitting next to Melania, and Trump is actually giving him the time of day and letting him speak. Like, what is going on here? And then people are still panicking about AI and Palantir, the big AI powerhouse from Silicon Valley that is supposedly very dangerous actually for our future. Well, why do you think Trump announced a couple of months ago that Palantir is going to be investing, I don't know, I can't remember what the sum was, but something like 500 billion into the US? Because if you think Executive Order 13818, then you're starting to realize perhaps that is actually taking ownership, taking over that company that was up to nefarious things, and ensuring that that assets and money is taken, invested in AI development that is going to benefit the people, and in that way controlling where AI is heading on this planet. Now, apart from the fact that Trump often highlights people that he wants to expose, and he will compliment them, but actually it's an indirect exposure. It's building a narrative to expose what they have done. But apart from that, that being one of the reasons we saw Bill Gates sitting there, the other reason is if you think about AI and where technology is going, for the world to be able to accept things and to be able to roll out the safe AI, the rails and the systems that are going to keep AI safe for this planet and not allow it to run rogue and take over the planet, is to do it through those companies, reputable companies that up to now people have respected. We all know Microsoft and all these companies are not companies that we can trust nor respect. But if 80% of the world is respecting it, what better way to roll out AI development, benevolent AI investment and development, because you can't stop it. You can try, but you cannot stop it. So if you can't stop it, then at least make sure you keep your hand on it. And to do it through these companies where there's a lot of acceptance amongst the sleeping masses, there's a lot of credibility, okay, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of track record, but forcing and controlling that rollout to ensure he's got his hand, and the military has its hand, and Space Force has its hand on every single detail, instead of AI development running amok and potentially threatening our planet. So by doing that strategically, so it looks like the US is not controlling, but the powerhouse on earth that is at the front end of developing AI and all these systems, you can actually ensure that you keep it under a certain control. Otherwise, if it's completely decentralized, AI can become dangerous. Like if it's, say, let's develop in China, wherever, where it has a back door and all these things that cannot be trusted, you can imagine that can be extremely dangerous for the planet. And also to make sure that it's entirely folded into the quantum system, or the quantum, not the quantum financial system, but the bigger quantum supercomputer system that's on Earth, to make sure there's eyes on everything, that there's no rogue elements that can ever take over. So in my mind, that's why all of that is happening. Whilst we in the Awakened community and the Truth community and the spiritual community don't like that, or didn't like seeing that, you have to see that as the reason why all of this is happening. That is why Trump plays dumb on a lot of subjects, pretends that he doesn't know about a lot of things that he clearly does know about and that we want disclosure on, because it has to be done slowly but surely. But things are at some point going to accelerate with a great pace, with financial system reset and possibly false flag or black swan event and an EBS. A lot of things will be clarified. So even the people that are fast asleep will be jolted out of their slumber to be able to recognize certain things. But things had to be building up to a certain point where it's already in the back of their mind. So when it does happen, it's like, oh, yes, now this makes sense, you know? So you've got to understand it from that point of view. You know, and obviously with the rainbow currency that'll be asset backed, and all these digital currencies that'll be asset backed as well. I think the ones that are not are going to have a problem. And things like gold, silver, platinum, and real assets are going to hold a lot of value, at least for the next couple of years. We look forward to a time where there will be no more need for money as such. But we, you know, the planet is not ready for that. So there's that going to be that interim bridge phase where at least the currency that will be used will have real value and not just a printed piece of paper that can be reproduced by nefarious forces that control the printing process. So yeah, there's so many, you know, those are the main points of it. But of course, there's many other points that is spoken of as well. The fact that the IRS will be completely abolished. What we're going to see under the first part of the rollout of NESARA is that, you know, taxes, all these taxes that we have on everything and everything and everything in our society and our life will be abolished. And the only thing that will remain is a sales tax on new goods, non-essential new goods. So even a house, if you sell that on, there won't be any tax on that, for example. It'll only new things, new cars, new things. No, not on food, not on healthcare, not on all of the necessary things for survival. That won't be taxed. And that's going to be huge. And so there'll be a flat national sales tax of, you know, 14, 15%. And the corporations that currently rule our countries will be removed from power. And this is already happening in the background, like what we've spoken about before, and the 250th anniversary of the US Army in June. I think it was on the 14th of June, when that Marine was handing over a folded flag to President Trump. That was basically the funeral of the US corporation, symbolically. And so, you know, people will start to realize that actually the US corporation is no more, and that even if you say, well, all this debt still has to be settled, there's going to be enough trillions of in assets and wealth in sovereign funds that are going to be settling this debt globally. So we won't be living in a debt-based system anymore. It will be based on credit. So the entire new financial system will roll out on the planet. And even, you know, the legal systems and the voting system, everything will be on blockchain. Everything will work off the quantum supercomputers, and that so nothing can be fiddled with. You know, nothing can be messed with. Everything is transparent. It's on a blockchain, and it's there for everyone to see. What else? Yeah, so the quantum financial system will also have custody for exchanges. It will be free and fair and decentralized. All of the reclaiming of the stolen elites' assets, like we said in some of these major corporations that I just mentioned, the tech corporations, that will be applied and redistributed to the people, firstly to settle debt and then to help the people. And there will be not a universal basic income, but more than likely a universal high income. And that money will be slowly paid back on a monthly basis to people. If you give it to them all at once, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be an absolute shit show on earth. Okay. So it's got to be done. People have to be educated during that time of them getting the repayment on a monthly basis so that the world doesn't collapse, because all businesses will collapse if you give people too much money. So people would still need to work, but they wouldn't have to work as hard. They can earn more money and they will have additional income, reparations from the government for all the money stolen. That will help them live a more abundant life, to make sure everyone has homes. Everyone owns their own home. You know, anyone whose homes have been taken away from them through uh, banks repossessing their houses due to them not being able to repay the debt, due to everything that's unfolded over the last few years on this planet. People can't afford, mortgages anymore. They can't even afford food anymore. All of those things will be made right, and they will receive either the home that's been taken from them or a similar value home. So everyone will have homes, and nobody will have to live in poverty anymore. Um, so yeah, that sounds exciting, isn't it? That is really in line with the prophesied golden age. It's very much a pillar of this golden age fully taking shape, where debt slavery will become a thing of the past, and humanity will enter a new time of sovereignty, self-sovereignty. And when that happens, people can actually focus on their own evolution, their own spiritual development, instead of just surviving. Because when people are surviving and trying to just, that lower chakras are just firing all the time, flight or flight, survival, then how can you reach higher? How can you reach into the higher chakras? It's not possible. And it's all by design, done like that, so that they can feed off the loosh of the people on this planet. So that is what's happening. Isn't that exciting? And there's enough evidence every week. You may think it's slow, you may think there's not enough happening, but trust that this is an extremely complex thing. There are constant curveballs that they have to deal with as well. It's not an exact science. So just be patient, guys. Don't rely on that check next month or the month thereafter. Don't bank on it. It's just like gambling. If you want to gamble, make sure you're prepared to lose the money. Now with this as well, don't spend your last savings. Do what you can to create your own abundance. Firstly, within your mindset, feel that you can be and that you are abundant, because we live in an illusion. We live in a holographic matrix, which means your vibration, your frequency is attracting like frequencies. So if you're in a lack mindset, you're just going to attract more lack. Even if you say, I really want this, and please can I have, and you pray and you say, please have mercy on me. You're in a victim mindset, and everything that you're going to attract is going to perpetuate that victim mindset until you change the way that you think. Until you train your mind, you reprogram your mind to think differently and to want differently and to know differently and to act differently. So just, try and feel that abundance. Try and reprogram your mind, even if it's with daily affirmations that in the beginning you don't fully believe, but as time goes on, it creeps into your mind, and before you know it, it becomes part of your mantra, it becomes part of your belief system, it becomes part of your energy. So eventually it will stick. So just keep going. That besides all of this that is coming, that is a very important aspect that we need to learn to transform the mindset. The lack mindset, the mindset of you're not worthy enough for all of the good things in life. And obviously, understand that the military is going to come and play a big role at some point in this exercise, where they will have to take control of the streets and how this final stage in the war is rolling out. And we all know that in this movement, and we're not afraid of that. In fact, that'll be very good news when we are at that point. So just remember, other people will panic. Some people might lose money in the bank or money from the stock market. All of these things are going to happen. But in the end, we're all going to be okay. I'm not going to sit here and blast fear in your mind and tell you to take all your money out of the bank, because it's not practical. Where are you going to put it? In your mattress? You're going to put it all in digital currencies? You're going to put it all in gold? I don't think, at the end of the day, everyone will be taken care of and have tenfold, hundredfold what they have now. So just have faith and know that everything is going to work out well. So, don't do anything under a panic, or don't have that frequency of fear and panic in your mind, because it's not good. So, we're going to reach a time where there won't be politics on earth anymore. The politicians won't exist anymore. Instead, there'll be wise leaders in councils, in communities that will help govern the planet with and for the people and by the people. And there won't be controllers ruling this planet anymore. We will take charge fully as graduated human beings who can govern and rule and manage ourselves. It's like when you grow up, you become responsible. You don't have to have your parents give you a million rules to not do this, not do that, because you can manage your own life now. You're self-responsible. You know the consequences of doing certain things and how it can impact your own life and others. Whereas when you're a child, you don't really care. You don't really realize that. And, we know how children are. That's why they need rules. So we are those children that are now growing up. And many of us are already grown up, but the bulk of the planet has not. And so we have to go through that process. And remember, a lot of us already have our mindset in 5D to a large extent, but I thought it was necessary just to touch on this transition period that we will see play out, and for a lot of the people that are still in the 3D to understand what they're going to be going through and seeing roll out. And there will be a bigger part of humanity coming together, uniting under this new way of life. Not all. Some will want to stay polarized and stay with the negative, and that's their choice, and we have to respect that. Their soul has more lessons to learn. That's okay. But a lot of us are ready and excited to move fully into 5D and beyond. It's going to be 5 to 7D. It's not just going to be 5D. It's not going to just be the fifth dimension. That's just the baseline of this new earth. It's going to be beyond, and the sky's the limit. There are many more dimensions that we can elevate to if we so choose. And a lot of our higher selves and other selves and parallel selves are already existing in high dimensions. So it's not even going to be that difficult. There's more of your soul fractals coming back to you now. And this body is going to be the vehicle to bring that oversoul into full physical existence, where it's ready to come into this physical body and commune with this human consciousness that is the character that plays you in this incarnation. That is a mouthful. So, yeah, and with all of these changes, we're going to see a change in how business is conducted globally. It's going to be a lot more focused on being beneficial to humans, to employees, to customers. It's going to be about win-win. It's not going to be any that lies and deception anymore, and survival of the fittest. All of those things are going to go away. Violence and crime is going to go away once everyone has what they need. Agriculture is going to change completely, because when farmers don't need to chase profits anymore, they're going to be farming for the love of it, instead of just farming for profit and doing these horrible monoculture farming practices with using pesticides and whatnot, which is very harmful. So the whole of the agriculture kind of industry is going to change as well. The way we treat our oceans and our waters are going to change as well, because there is an abundance of water on this planet. Really, there is an abundance. It just changes forms, like I've said in my videos about water. Water doesn't go away. It just transports itself. If water vaporizes going to the air, where does it go? It doesn't disappear. It just goes somewhere else. And we're going to discover that there's an endless supply of water in this planet, and under the, inside of the earth, you can access new waters, and we're going to experience living water, structured water, not only to drink, but also in our rivers and our oceans. We're not going to have sewage being pumped into our rivers and oceans anymore. We're not going to have all the pollution, all of the fish and plant life in the oceans being abused like they are now. So things are going to change, and people are going to start becoming more spiritual and less material. We're moving from a material age to a spiritual age. So everything is going to shift in our environment, in our lives, the way we think. So people are going to become more spiritually minded. A lot of people are going to start going through their own spiritual awakenings as well. We're going to have to be there to support them and help them and educate them when they're going through the dark night of the soul. There won't be terrorism on this planet anymore. Can you imagine? When it's safe to walk the streets anymore, your kids can go run to the farmer next door on the road and not have to worry about being abducted or kidnapped or killed or raped. All of that is going to go away. But don't expect everything to change overnight. It's going to take a few years, but some of the changes are imminent and will make our life dramatically better. I can guarantee you. So, and imagine all the infrastructure, all of these ugly buildings and all this horrible construction for profit that is just all over the planet, destroying Mother Earth. Those things are going to go away. Transport, roads, all of it is changing. What a beautiful time to look forward to. See if there's anything else I can touch on. All of these things are changing, guys, and that is New Earth. That really is New Earth. So be prepared to lead with the rest of the star seeds, way shows, and awakened ones, because leadership is going to look differently as well. Leadership will not be artificial, propped up constructs of people that either have the money or the power to elevate themselves. It's going to be a natural thing where people with actual knowledge to share and actual value to add to society will become leaders, but not in the traditional sense, where their reputations and will be propped up, or they'll be seen as better than others, or gurus. Gurus are not going to exist in the future. It's about the empowerment of the collective, all of society. There's so much more I can dive into, but I just wanted to give you a flavor and remind you of where we are going, and some of these things are imminent. So continue to visualize that new earth. I hope some of the points I mentioned to you will help you visualize where we are going, and just daydream about it, because the more of us daydream about it, the more that daydream becomes reality, because daydreams are the way we create reality, by the way. That's how we co-create. That's how we create as powerful beings. Daydreaming is not what they told you it is. It's actually part of the creation process. So enjoy the daydreaming. Take that quiet time to visualize what your life will look like and what everyone's lives will look like in the future. And start, putting those building blocks in place, and start, changing your mindset in terms of moving away from lack and disempowerment, away from victimhood, to be the powerful co-creator that you really are. So that's it. We may have some work to do next couple of days doing the solar eclipse, let go of some stuff, but all of that is going to culminate into a beautiful new shift of reality. So enjoy it, make the most of it. I'm sending you much love, And what else? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this content so we can help more people. And so I can help, you can help me share this message to more people, because I want to be instrumental in helping the collective. And so we help each other, right? I help you, you help me, I help others, you help others. That's how we win as a collective. So, and don't forget to join our Telegram channel where we share daily news. So that's where we keep in touch, even if I can't share video daily. And then if you feel called, join our 5D Mastery community. We've got a Zoom call every second Sunday. Our next one is tomorrow on the lunar eclipse. So we're going to look at the lunar eclipse portal, what this means for the collective, moving into the 999 portal of endings and new beginnings. And so you're welcome, you're invited. I shared the link on our Telegram channel, Vivid Earth. The link is below. So go into that channel, look at the pinned messages at the top, and you will find the link for tomorrow. And I'll share again tomorrow. So with that, I'm sending you all much love, and I will see you in the next video.